My husband threw me out on the street like trash after 15 years together, with no money, no home, absolutely nothing. When I used the old card my father had left me, the bank manager went pale and said, "Ma'am, quickly, you need to see this." What I discovered that day changed everything, and my ex-husband still has no idea what is coming for him. But before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories reach. The rain was pouring down hard when I walked out of the apartment building for the last time. I didn't bring an umbrella because I never imagined he would do something like this. 15 years of marriage. 15 years building a life next to Gregory, and it all ended with him pointing at the door and telling me I had 30 minutes to leave. 30 minutes. I couldn't even process it properly. I had just returned from Ohio, where I spent 3 weeks caring for my mother who had suffered a stroke. I was exhausted, desperate to get back home, dreaming of sleeping in my own bed. When I put the key in the lock and it didn't work, I thought it had demagnetized. I rang the doorbell. Gregory opened the door with a cold expression I had never seen before. He was wearing that designer shirt I had given him for his birthday, but there was a lipstick stain on the collar. Wine red lipstick, not my shade. "You're back?" was all he said. I felt my stomach knot. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Why isn't the key working?" I asked, still not understanding. "Because I changed the locks." He said it so naturally I thought I had heard him wrong. But then a feminine laugh echoed from inside, coming from our bedroom. A young, lively voice, without a shred of shame. "Greg, who is it? If it's the doorman, tell him to get lost." She appeared at the door wearing my silk robe. The robe I bought on a trip to Paris. That expensive robe Gregory had complained cost too much. And now it was on the body of a girl who couldn't be more than 25. I recognized her face, a digital influencer, the kind who posts photos on yachts and at fancy restaurants. Chloe Algo. She had almost 200,000 followers on Instagram. She looked me up and down. My wrinkled jeans from the trip, my simple blouse, my hair thrown up in a messy bun. And she gave a sideways smile, a poisonous smile. "Oh, it's just his ex-wife," she said, turning back to Gregory. I thought that was significant. Ex-wife. The word cut like glass. "Gregory, what is going on?" My voice came out trembling. "Who is this girl? Why is she in our house wearing my things?" He sighed, as if I were being an inconvenience, as if I were a problem he needed to solve quickly so he could get back to doing something more interesting. "It's over, Emily. There is no us anymore." Just like that. 15 years summarized in a few words. "What do you mean it's over?" "I was taking care of my mom. You said everything was fine, that I could stay as long as necessary, and I was being polite," he replied, with that tone of superiority I had learned to hate in recent years. "But the truth is, this hasn't worked for a long time. You stagnated, Emily. You became a boring housewife. I need someone who can keep up with me, who understands my lifestyle." I looked at Chloe, who was now checking her phone with disinterest, as if this conversation were too tedious to merit her attention. "Since when?" I managed to ask. 8 months, he answered without hesitation. "Chloe understands me in a way you never did." 8 months. While I was waking up early to make his coffee the way he liked it, while I was organizing his corporate parties, while I pretended not to notice he was becoming more distant, he had already replaced our entire life with another woman. "Walk with me downstairs," Gregory ordered. "Let's resolve this in a civilized manner, without a scene." He guided me to the elevator. We went down in silence. In the lobby of the building, where we had lived for 10 years, in an exclusive neighborhood in Manhattan near Central Park, where I greeted the neighbors every morning, he took me to a discreet corner, away from prying eyes. "I already filed for divorce 3 weeks ago," he said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. "Everything is here, signed and filed. The apartment is in my name. The cars too. I already emptied the joint accounts." My world spun. "You can't do that. I have rights." "Rights?" He laughed. "Emily, you haven't worked in 10 years. You lived off me all this time. If you want to fight in court, go ahead. But you will spend money you don't have on lawyers, and you will lose anyway. Accept it and move on." The doorman approached, bringing my suitcase. That old suitcase I had used for the trip to Ohio. Gregory took it and placed it at my feet with indifference. Your clothes are in there. The rest I threw out. It wasn't worth anything anyway. I looked at the suitcase. 15 years fit into one worn-out bag. You can't leave me with nothing, I whispered, feeling the tears starting to burn. Gregory, please. If you don't make a scene, maybe I'll give you some financial help. About $500, so you can go see your mother and stay there until you get organized. $500, as if that compensated for 15 years of my life. Some people in the lobby stopped to watch. Whispers, pitying looks. Gregory noticed and got irritated. Stop making a scene, he said, raising his voice. Security. 2 security guards approached. I knew both of them, Mr. Henderson and Mr. Miller, who always greeted me with kindness. Now they were there to escort me out. Excuse me, Mrs. Emily, Mr. Henderson said softly, taking my suitcase. We don't want to do this, but I understand. I interrupted him, trying to maintain some dignity. I looked back one last time. Gregory was already returning to the elevator, phone to his ear, probably talking business with someone, as if I had never existed. The glass doors of the building closed behind me, isolating me from 15 years of my life. I stood there on the sidewalk, under the rain that was now falling harder, with an old suitcase and an envelope full of papers that made my humiliation official. The world kept moving around me, yellow taxis passing by, people running to shelter from the rain, the city indifferent to my despair. I started walking aimlessly, dragging the suitcase through the wet streets. I couldn't go back to Ohio in this state. My mother was still recovering, too fragile to handle this news. I didn't have close friends in the city. I had lost contact with everyone when I got married, absorbed completely into Gregory's world. Night fell quickly. The city lights turned on, bright storefronts, crowded restaurants, couples laughing. I was invisible, a wet and lost shadow. I went into a cheap diner and ordered a coffee. I opened my wallet. I had $20. That was all I had left in the world. $20. It wasn't even enough for a night in a decent hotel. My phone was at 5% battery. I opened the banking app, trembling. The joint account Gregory and I had was at 0. He had taken out every last penny, including the money I had before I got married, a small inheritance from my grandmother. Everything. He took everything. I felt like screaming, crying, breaking something, but I could only sit there, staring at that screen with a 0 balance, while reality crashed down on me like an overwhelming weight. I was alone, with no money, no home, no one. That was when I saw the card. It was hidden in the deepest compartment of the wallet, behind an old photo of my father. The card was dark blue, somewhat faded at the edges, with the logo of a bank I didn't even remember existed anymore, Heritage National Bank. I took the card with trembling fingers. The last time I had seen this was 15 years ago, when my father gave it to me before I got married. I remembered the conversation as if it were yesterday. We were in his small office in Ohio, between stacks of papers and the smell of stale coffee. My father owned a small grocery store, nothing huge, but enough to live well. Emily, he had said to me, with that serious tone he used when he wanted to say something important. This is an account I opened for you a long time ago. Do not use it unless you really need it. It is not for normal expenses. Do you understand? How much is in there, Dad? I asked, curious. He just smiled. That mysterious smile that meant he knew more than he was saying. Enough, but keep it as a last resort. As long as you are swimming fine, you don't need this life jacket. But if the boat starts to sink, he paused. Hold on to it tight. I had put the card away and forgot about it completely. After all, Gregory was successful. We had a comfortable life. I never imagined that one day I would need a life jacket. Now, sitting in that cheap diner, with $20 in my pocket and a destroyed life, my father's card was my only hope. Maybe there were a few $1,000s there, enough for a bus ticket to Ohio and a few months' rent for a simple room. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I paid for the coffee and left. The rain had stopped, but the air was cold and damp. I needed to find a branch of Heritage National Bank. I checked my phone, 3% battery now, and searched. There was a branch 20 minutes away. It opened at 9 in the morning. I looked at the clock. It was almost 11 at night. I would have to wait until the next day. I spent the night at a bus stop, hugging my suitcase, trying not to sleep for fear of being robbed. The cold got into my bones. Some people walked by and looked with pity or disdain. A lady stopped and offered me a bagel. I accepted, swallowing my pride along with the food. When the first glow of dawn appeared, I got up and went to a public restroom. I washed my face. I tried to fix my hair. I straightened my clothes. I wanted to look minimally presentable to enter the bank. At 9 o'clock sharp, I was in front of the branch. It was an old building, but well preserved. Very little movement. I went in and took a number. I was called almost immediately. The teller was young. He couldn't be more than 25. His name tag said Tyler. He smiled professionally. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I put the faded card on the counter. I forgot the PIN. I wanted to know the balance. Tyler took the card and his eyes widened a bit. "Wow, this card is very old, a model from about 20 years ago." He typed some data into the computer. "Can you show me your ID?" I handed over my driver's license with trembling hands. He typed a few more things. The screen took a while to process. Tyler frowned. "How strange," he murmured. My heart raced. "What is it? Is it blocked? Is there a debt?" "No, it's not that." He looked at me, then at the screen, then at me again. "It's just that. This card is linked to a special account, a corporate account, and it has a security code I've never seen." "Corporate?" I didn't understand anything. My father had a small grocery store, not a big corporation. Just a moment. Tyler stood up abruptly. "I need to call the manager. This is above my clearance level." He disappeared through a side door. I sat there, feeling a mix of fear and hope. Was there a problem? Had my father left debts? A few minutes later, a man of about 50 appeared. Gray hair, reading glasses hanging around his neck, serious expression. His name tag said Patrick Reynolds, manager. He looked at me differently, with respect. "Mrs. Emily Carter?" he asked, verifying my ID. "Yes, please. Come with me to my office. We need to talk in private." My heart was beating so hard it felt like it would come out of my mouth. I took my suitcase and followed him to a small office with frosted glass walls. He closed the door and offered me water. "Mrs. Emily," he began, sitting behind the desk, "the account linked to this card is a very special account." "Special how?" He took a deep breath, as if trying to find the right words. "Your father, Arthur Carter, opened a corporate structure 23 years ago. A family trust called SEA Investments. He deposited and invested money religiously for years, with a very specific clause." I wasn't understanding anything. What kind of clause? Patrick turned the monitor toward me. The screen showed an account with numbers that made no sense to me. Many zeros. The clause stated that you would only have full access to this account when you met one of two conditions. Either when your father passed away, or when you found yourself in a situation of extreme financial need. My throat went dry. Extreme need. Your father was very specific. He programmed the system so that if you used this card after years of inactivity, and if your personal accounts were at zero, that would automatically trigger the transfer of control to you. I looked at the screen. Those numbers, they couldn't be real. How much? How much is in there? My voice came out almost in a whisper. Patrick adjusted his glasses. "In total, considering investments, stocks, funds, and the money in the checking account, we are talking about approximately $3,400,000. The world stopped. $3,400,000. "This can't be true," I managed to say. "My father owned a small grocery store. He sold rice, beans, basic products. Apparently, he also invested very well," Patrick said with a half smile. "And for a long time, compound interest works miracles when you have patience and discipline." He opened a drawer and took out a large envelope, yellowed with time. "Your father left this for you, with instructions that it only be delivered when the account was activated." I took the envelope with trembling hands. My name was written on the front, in my father's firm handwriting. "You can open it," Patrick said kindly. "I'll give you privacy." He left the office. I stayed there alone, holding that envelope as if it were going to explode. I tore the edge carefully and took out several sheets of paper. The first was a letter, Handwritten. My dear Emily, if you are reading this, it means something went very wrong or I am no longer here. Either way, I want you to know that everything I did was thinking of your future. I grew up poor. Daughter, very poor. I saw my mother suffer from not having money to eat. I saw good women be destroyed by bad men because they had no choice, because they depended on them for everything. When you were born, I swore you would never go through that you would always have a choice. I worked hard all my life. The grocery store made a profit. But it wasn't just that. I invested every penny I had left over. I learned by myself, reading books, studying the market. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I created this trust in secret because I didn't want any man to get close to you for money. I wanted you to choose for love, not out of necessity. But I also wanted that if one day you needed it, you had something to lean on. The extreme need clause was intentional. If you are reading this now, it is because you are going through something difficult, and I want you to know you are not alone. I took care of you, even after I was gone. Use this money wisely, not for revenge, but to build your own life, a free life where you depend only on yourself. Be strong, my daughter. You were always stronger than you imagined. With all my love, your father. Tears fell on the paper, staining some words. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were of gratitude, of love, of understanding. My father had protected me even after death. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. Patrick returned to the office, bringing more papers. There are some decisions that need to be made, he said. The trust holds shares in some companies, investment funds, and a small rural property in upstate New York. Everything needs your signature now that you are the legal holder. I looked at those papers. Each one represented years of my father's silent work, years planning my future while I lived without a worry. I need 3 things now, I said, surprised by the firmness of my own voice. Patrick picked up a pen. Tell me. First, I need cash. I literally have nothing. We can make an immediate withdrawal of up to $2,000. More than that requires prior notice. $1,000 is fine. Second, I need a safe place to stay. A discreet hotel where my ex-husband can't find me if he looks. Patrick nodded. I know a hotel that accepts corporate bookings. Discreet, secure, no questions asked. And third, I paused. I need a lawyer. The best divorce lawyer you know. Someone who isn't afraid to fight rich people. Patrick smiled, for the first time, a true smile. I know the right person. Catherine Sterling, Kate. She is relentless, specialized in asset division cases where one of the spouses tries to hide wealth. Perfect. I left the bank 3 hours later with a purse containing $1,000 in cash, 3 corporate credit cards, a stack of documents about my new assets, and Kate Sterling's number written on a piece of paper. I wasn't the same woman who had entered. My first stop was at a clothing store. Nothing extravagant, but clean. New clothes that made me feel human again. I bought 2 pairs of pants, 3 blouses, underwear, a light jacket, and a pair of comfortable shoes. I changed right there in the fitting room and threw the old clothes in the trash. Then I went directly to the hotel Patrick had indicated. It was discreet, as promised. An old, renovated building in Midtown, without a flashy doorman, a sober entrance. I checked in under the trust's name as a corporate entity. The room was small but clean. Hot shower, firm bed, silence. I took the longest shower of my life, letting the hot water wash away all the dirt, fear, and humiliation of the last 24 hours. When I got out of the bath, I looked at myself in the steamed-up mirror. My face was still tired, but my eyes had something different, a determination that wasn't there before. I called Kate's number. Sterling and Associates, a professional female voice answered. I would like to speak with Catherine Sterling. It is urgent. Miss Sterling is in a meeting. Can I take your contact information? Please, tell her it is Emily Carter. Patrick Reynolds from Heritage National Bank recommended her. It is about a divorce case with asset concealment. There was a pause. Just a moment. Less than a minute later, another voice answered, deeper, firmer. Emily? This is Kate Sterling. Patrick called me earlier. I am aware of the situation. Can we meet today? Today? I was surprised by the speed. The faster we start, the better. Your husband thinks you have no resources to fight. As long as he believes that, we have the advantage. Can you come to my office in 2 hours? I can. Excellent. Bring all the documents you have about the marriage, assets, joint accounts, everything. And Emily? Yes? You did the right thing by looking for me. We are going to get back what is yours. I hung up the phone with my heart beating fast. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something that wasn't despair. It was anger. Anger for having been used, discarded, humiliated. And anger was a much better fuel than fear. I separated all the papers I had. The marriage certificate, copies of old bank statements, the envelope Gregory had given me with the divorce already resolved. I put everything in a folder and left for Kate's office. The firm was in a commercial building in Financial District, on the 40th floor. The waiting room was modern, with gray walls and well cared for plants. The receptionist offered me coffee while I waited. It didn't take 5 minutes. A woman of about 45, dark hair pulled back in a bun, thick-rimmed glasses, and an impeccable suit appeared at the door. Emily? She extended her hand. Kate Sterling. Let's talk. We entered a spacious office, with a large desk covered in law books and a computer. The walls were lined with diplomas and certificates. Kate was clearly someone who knew what she was doing. She sat down, took a pen, and a notepad. Tell me everything. From the beginning, I told her. How I met Gregory in college, how he was charming and ambitious, how we married shortly after I graduated, how he convinced me not to work, saying he wanted to support me, that I deserved a comfortable life. How over the years I lost my independence, my friends, my identity. I told her about my sick mother, about the trip to Ohio, about returning and finding another woman in my house, about being kicked out with a suitcase and $20 in my pocket. Kate wrote everything down, without interrupting. When I finished, she put the pen on the desk and looked me straight in the eyes. Your ex-husband made several serious mistakes. Mistakes? First, he filed for divorce without your signature. That invalidates the entire process. Second, he emptied joint accounts without your knowledge or authorization. That is a crime. Third, there are assets acquired during the marriage to which, legally, you are entitled to half. I felt a wave of hope. But he said everything is in his name. And it probably is. Men like your ex-husband are smart. They put everything in their own name. Sometimes they use shell companies, nominee accounts, but that doesn't matter. Kate smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator seeing prey. What matters is that he underestimated you, and that is going to cost him dearly. What are we going to do? Kate opened her laptop. First, we are going to annul the fraudulent divorce he filed. That gives us a basis to file a real lawsuit where you will have a voice. Second, we are going to investigate his entire net worth. Companies, accounts, real estate, investments, everything. I have contacts who do that kind of forensic accounting. Won't that be expensive? It is. But from what Patrick told me, you have resources now. And I can guarantee you, it will be worth every penny. I signed the service contract right there. Kate explained that the process would be long. Maybe it would take months. But that we had real chances of getting a fair settlement. In the meantime, she said, you need to keep your new wealth a complete secret. If your ex-husband discovers you have resources, he will try somehow to get to that money. Men like that don't like losing. He won't find out, I said firmly. My father made sure this was kept secret, and it will stay that way. Excellent. Oh, and Emily? Yes? Prepare yourself psychologically. When we file the court motions, when Gregory realizes you didn't give up, he will try to intimidate you. He will send messages, maybe try to look for you. He will make threats. It is the pattern. I am ready. But was I really? I spent the following days in a strange routine. In the morning, meetings with Kate and her team. They discovered Gregory had 3 apartments, besides the one where we lived, all rented out. They discovered accounts in 2 different banks, investments in startups, even a small stake in a famous restaurant. All hidden, all in his name or companies he controlled. He was preparing for this for years, Kate said, showing the documents, systematically taking you out of the financial game. It is a classic case of economic abuse. Economic abuse. I had never heard that term, but it made sense. Gregory had made me dependent on him, on purpose, and now he thought he could get rid of me without consequences. In the afternoon, I met with Patrick at the bank to better understand my own investments. My father's trust held shares in solid companies, fixed income funds, even some crypto assets he had bought years ago and were now worth a fortune. "Your father was a visionary," Patrick said with admiration. "He understood the market better than many professionals." 1 week after being kicked out of the house, I was sitting in a coffee shop near the old building where I lived. I hadn't gone back there, but I needed to see him. I needed to confirm for myself that it was real, that it wasn't a nightmare. The coffee shop had a view of the building's entrance. I ordered a cappuccino and pretended to read a book while I watched. Gregory came out around 10 in the morning, dressed to impress, as always. Chloe was by his side, clinging to his arm, laughing out loud at something. She was wearing a very expensive dress I recognized from a shop window I had seen last week. It cost almost $5,000. He was supporting her the same way he had supported me. The difference was she was young, pretty, visible, a trophy for him to show off. I felt a twinge of something that wasn't exactly jealousy. It was pity. Pity for her, for not knowing she would be discarded too one day. Pity for him, for being so empty he needed external validation all the time. My phone rang. It was Kate. "Emily, we have news. I got a court order to freeze Gregory's accounts temporarily. The judge accepted our arguments about the illegal emptying of the joint accounts." "You froze his accounts?" "All the ones we could identify so far. He can't move anything until the case is judged. And there is more. We filed the request for annulment of the fraudulent divorce. He will receive the notification today." I looked out the coffee shop window. Gregory and Chloe were getting into an imported car, laughing, with no idea what was about to happen. "Perfect," I said. "Thank you, Kate. It is just the beginning. Now comes the interesting part." I hung up and watched their car disappear around the corner. The game had begun, and this time I had aces up my sleeve he didn't even dream existed. The legal notification reached Gregory on a Tuesday morning. I know because Kate called me as soon as the process server confirmed delivery. "He received it personally," she said, with satisfaction in her voice. "And from the reports, he didn't react well." "What do you mean he didn't?" "Let's say he got agitated. He tried to convince the server that everything was resolved, that the divorce was already finalized. When he realized it wouldn't work, he started shouting." I imagined the scene. Gregory losing control, that mask of superiority cracking. I felt a small but real satisfaction. And now? Now he has 20 days to respond. He will probably hire an expensive lawyer and try to negotiate. But Emily, be prepared. He will try to contact you. She was right. 3 hours later, my phone started ringing. "Gregory." I declined. It rang again. I declined. Messages started popping up on WhatsApp. "Emily, we need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. Call me. You are being manipulated by those lawyers. They just want your money." How funny. Did he think I had hired lawyers with what money exactly? He still thought I was destitute, desperate. I didn't answer any messages. Kate had instructed me not to maintain direct contact. Everything had to go through the lawyers. The messages became more aggressive. "You are going to regret this. You will lose and, on top of that, end up in debt. I gave you a good life for 15 years. You owe me this." I blocked the number, but he didn't give up. He created another number and kept trying. "Chloe is asking me if you are okay. She is worried about you." This made me laugh out loud, alone in the hotel room. "Chloe, worried about me." "Sure." I blocked the second number too. That night, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered by mistake, thinking it was Kate's office. "Emily." It was his voice. Calmer now, controlled. That tone he used when he wanted to convince me of something. "How did you get this number?" "I have my contacts. We need to talk. Personally." "We have nothing to talk about. Speak to my lawyer." "Emily, don't be ridiculous. Those lawyers are using you. You don't have money to afford a legal fight with me. You are going to end up on the street for real." I took a deep breath. I couldn't let him get under my skin. "I am already well advised. Thanks for the concern." "Advised with what money?" He laughed. "Do you think I don't know you were sleeping on the street? Mr. Henderson told me." "Mr. Henderson." The doorman. Of course, Gregory had eyes everywhere. If you call me again, I will file a harassment report. I hung up before he could answer. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. He still believed he had power over me, that he could intimidate me. I called Kate and told her about the calls. Perfect, she said. Save all those messages, screenshots of everything. This demonstrates harassment and attempted coercion. It helps our case. Can he find out about my money? Not through legal channels. Your trust is under bank secrecy, registered only in your name. Unless you tell someone, there is no way for him to know. But paranoia started to grow. What if he hired a private investigator? What if he somehow found out? Patrick reassured me when I called the next day. Your asset structure is protected. Your father made sure of that. The trust does not appear in public searches. The investments are in separate corporate accounts. Even an investigator would have difficulty tracking it. Still, I decided to be more careful. I moved hotels to an even more discreet one. I started varying my schedules and routes. Maybe it was exaggerated, but I didn't want to take the risk. 2 weeks after the notification, Kate called me for an urgent meeting. Gregory hired a big firm, Miller and Davis. They are expensive and aggressive. Is that bad? Not necessarily. Big firms are sometimes more worried about reputation and prefer settlements. But it also means he is taking it seriously. She put some papers on the desk. They sent a settlement proposal. Take the documents. Gregory was offering $50,000 as a final settlement. No division of assets. No rights over the real estate or companies. Just 50 grand in cash, paid in 24 monthly installments. It is an insult, Kate said. You are legally entitled to much more than that. The assets acquired during the marriage are worth at least $8 million. Half of that is yours. So we reject it. Exactly. And we are going to counterattack. We finished the complete assessment of his net worth. We found more interesting things. She opened her laptop and showed me a detailed spreadsheet. Besides the properties and accounts we already knew, they had discovered Gregory had stakes in a construction company, participation in 2 real estate developments, and even a ranch in upstate New York that was in the company's name. Was all this acquired during the marriage? I asked. No. Part was before, but it grew a lot during. And by law, the appreciation of assets during the marriage is divided. She showed me complex calculations, projections, comparisons. My head was spinning with so many numbers. How much do you think we can get? Kate smiled. If we win everything we are asking for, between $1 and $2 million, plus alimony for the years you dedicated to the marriage and gave up your career, $1 to $2 million, added to what I already had from my father, would be almost $5 million. It wasn't about the money, I repeated to myself. It was about justice. It was about not letting him get away with it after treating me like trash. Let's move forward, I said. That night, alone in the hotel, I thought about calling my mother. She deserved to know what was happening, but she was still fragile in health, and I didn't want to worry her. Instead, I wrote a letter I would never send, telling everything. About Gregory, about the divorce, about Dad's money, about the legal fight. Writing helped organize my thoughts, to process everything that was happening. When I finished, it was 3 a.m. I folded the letter and put it in the suitcase. The lawsuit continued. Hearings, filing of documents, appraisals. Gregory tried to argue that the assets were protected by holding companies that were not part of the marital estate. But Kate was relentless, proving the companies were just facades, that the money came from work during the marriage. In one of the hearings, I saw Gregory personally for the first time since leaving home. He was impeccable, as always, expensive suit and confident posture. But when our eyes met, I saw something different. Uncertainty, anger, fear. Chloe was with him, but stayed outside the room. Through the window, I saw her on her phone, bored, probably posting some photo for Instagram. During the recess, Gregory's lawyer approached Kate. My client is willing to increase the offer. $100,000, cash. Kate didn't even consult me. My client is not interested in settlements. See you at the next hearing. The lawyer's face tensed. He went back and whispered something to Gregory, who looked at me with pure hate. I left the courthouse with Kate. Why didn't you accept even to negotiate? I asked. Because they are afraid. When they are afraid, it is because we know too much. The more we press, the better the final result will be. And she was right. A week later, a new proposal. $200,000. We rejected it. $300,000. We rejected it. With each rejection, I saw Gregory getting more desperate through the messages he insisted on sending from different numbers. You are being greedy. Those lawyers are manipulating you. You are going to destroy me out of pure revenge. Revenge. Maybe it was that. But it was also justice, and mostly, it was recovering what was rightfully mine. The turning point came from where I least expected it. It was Chloe who started to waver. Kate called me one afternoon with unexpected news. You won't believe it. Gregory's girlfriend contacted my office. Chloe? Why? She wants to talk. She says she has relevant information for the case. Information about Gregory that can help us. I didn't understand. Why would she do that? Is she with him? She was. Apparently, things got ugly. Do you want to meet her? She specifically asked to speak with you, not just me. I stayed silent, processing. Emily, what do you think? It could be a trap, it could be, but it could also be useful. The decision is yours. I thought for a moment. I will meet, but in a public place, with you present. We agreed on a quiet cafe, far from Gregory's usual circuit. I arrived 10 minutes early, nervous. Kate was already there, at a table in the back. Chloe appeared punctually. She was different. No heavy makeup, no flashy designer clothes, simple jeans, basic blouse, hair in a ponytail. She seemed smaller, younger, more fragile. She sat down and stayed silent for a moment. Thanks for agreeing to see me, she said finally. I didn't answer. I just waited. I know you hate me. You have every right. I was horrible to you. You were. She sighed. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know the truth about you two. The truth? I couldn't help the sarcastic tone. The truth is, you were sleeping with a married man. I know, but he told me. He told me you two had been separated for months, that you knew about him and that everything was fine, that it was just a matter of time for the divorce to go through. And you believed him? She blushed. I wanted to believe him. He was so convincing, so charming. He made me feel special. Her hands were shaking around the coffee cup. But after you left, things changed. Kate leaned forward. Changed how? He started controlling everything. My phone, my social media, my outings. He said it was because he loved me, because he was jealous. At first, I found it cute. She laughed humorlessly. How stupid was I? Why are you telling us this now? I asked. Chloe took a deep breath. Because he kicked me out, the same way he kicked you out. Last week, he simply said he didn't want me anymore, that I was being too needy, too dramatic. He told me to leave with a suitcase and $50. So that was it. Gregory had discarded her too. And you want revenge? Kate said bluntly. I do. But I also want to do the right thing. Chloe looked at me. You didn't deserve what he did, and I helped him do it. I want to fix this. What kind of information do you have? I asked. Chloe took a USB drive out of her purse. While I was there, he took work calls at home. I started paying attention, and I started recording. Kate took the USB drive like it was gold. Recording what? Conversations of him about business. There is a building he is constructing in Brooklyn. He used cheaper material than specified in the project, and there are audios of him agreeing to bribes with an inspector to pass an inspection. Silence fell over the table. This is... Kate paused. This is very serious. I know. When he kicked me out, I got angry. But I also got scared. If he did this to you, to me, how many other people did he do it to? And those buildings of his. There are people living in those buildings. If he used bad material... She was right. This went far beyond divorce and asset division. It was a crime. Why didn't you take this to the police? I asked. Because I'm afraid of him. He has expensive lawyers, contacts. I am nobody. But you. She looked at me. You are fighting him. And from what I saw in the lawsuit, you are winning. I thought this could help. Kate analyzed the USB drive. I'm going to need a technician to verify the authenticity of these audios, and you will need to sign a document confirming it was you who recorded it in your own handwriting. I'll sign it, whatever is necessary. We spent another hour at the cafe, while Kate asked detailed questions. Chloe told us about secret accounts Gregory mentioned, about meetings with businessmen that seemed suspicious, about cash payments he received that never entered the official accounts. When we finished, Chloe got up to leave. She stopped and looked at me. I know this doesn't erase what I did. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope this helps. Why are you really doing this? I asked. The truth, she hesitated. Because when he kicked me out, I understood what you must have felt. And no one deserves that. No one. She left. I stood looking out the window as she disappeared into the crowd. What do you think? I asked Kate. I think we just got heavy ammunition. If these audios are authentic, Gregory has much bigger problems than the divorce. She was right. 2 days later, the technician confirmed the audios were real, no edits or manipulations. The conversations were clear. Gregory agreeing to use cheaper cement and pocketing the difference. Gregory offering money to an inspector to approve a site that wasn't up to code. What do we do with this? I asked. Kate stayed silent for a moment. We have 2 options. We use it as leverage in the divorce, to force a better settlement, or we hand it to the authorities and let justice take its course. What do you recommend? Personally, both. First, we use it as leverage. When we get our deal, then we hand it to the police. That way you are financially protected and he still answers for the crimes. It seemed calculating, cold, but it also seemed right. Let's do it. Kate scheduled a meeting with Gregory's lawyers, in person, without revealing the reason. On the day of the meeting, we entered a conference room in a neutral hotel. Gregory was there with his 2 lawyers. When he saw me, his face contorted in a mix of rage and contempt. Haven't you given up on this charade yet? He said. Sit down, Gregory, Kate said calmly. We have a proposal. She put a tablet on the table and pressed play. Gregory's voice filled the room. Use the cheapest cement. No one will know the difference. The profit margin doubles. His face went white. Kate paused and looked at his lawyers. We have 12 hours of audio along these lines, including bribery agreements, use of irregular material, and discussions about tax evasion, all duly authenticated by a forensic expert. One of Gregory's lawyers stood up. This is inadmissible as evidence. It was obtained illegally. It was obtained by a third party present in the conversations, perfectly legal, and even if it weren't used in the divorce proceedings, nothing stops it from being handed over to the district attorney's office. Gregory exploded. Is this blackmail? No, Kate replied calmly. It is negotiation. You have 2 options. First, we close a fair division agreement today. You transfer half of the marital assets, as determined by law, and we all go on with our lives. Second, you don't close the deal. We hand this material to the police today, and you answer for various felonies while still fighting in court over the divorce. Silence. Gregory's lawyers looked at each other. One of them asked for a moment in private with the client. We left the room. I stood nervously in the hallway. Do you think it will work? I asked Kate. It will work. They have no choice. 15 minutes later, they called us back. Gregory was defeated, slumped in the chair, staring at the table. One of the lawyers spoke for him. My client agrees to make the equal division of assets, half of everything acquired during the marriage, plus compensation of $50,000 for moral damages. Kate looked at me. I nodded. I accept, but I want everything in writing today, and the initial transfer of the properties starting next week. We will arrange it. It took the rest of the day, but we left there with a signed agreement, notarized and filed. Gregory would transfer 2 apartments to me, half of the shares in the companies, and $250,000 in cash, paid in 6 months. Total, approximately $450,000 in value plus the real estate. When we left the hotel, it was already night. Kate hugged me. You did it. You got justice. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt just the end of a chapter. And the audios? I asked. Tomorrow morning I go personally to the DA's office. Gregory will have to deal with that too. I went back to the hotel exhausted. I took a long shower and collapsed into bed. For the first time in months, I slept deeply. 2 days later, The news hit the papers. Manhattan construction developer investigated for fraud and corruption. Gregory's photo was on the front page, leaving the precinct with a grim face. My phone rang. It was Chloe. "Did you see?" she asked. "I saw. Thanks for doing the right thing. You helped." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "I am. And you?" "I went back to my parents' house in Wisconsin. I'm starting over." "And you?" I looked around the hotel room that had been my home for the last few weeks. "I am starting over too." With the agreement signed and the transfers beginning, I needed to make practical decisions about my life. I couldn't stay in a hotel forever. Patrick helped me organize the finances. With the money from the settlement added to my father's inheritance, I had resources to live comfortably for the rest of my life without working. But the idea of doing nothing bothered me. "What did you like to do before you got married?" Patrick asked during a meeting. I had to think. It had been so long. I studied architecture. I never practiced. But I always liked design, creating spaces. "So why don't you go back to it?" It seemed impossible. 15 years away from the profession. Everything had changed. Software, trends, technologies. But the idea stayed in my head. Architecture. Creating beautiful and functional things. Helping people have better homes. I decided the first thing I would design would be my own house. A place that was completely mine, without bad memories, without associations with Gregory. I spent weeks looking for land. I wanted something quiet, but not too far from the city. A place where I could start over. I found a perfect plot in a gated community in Westchester, 40 minutes from the city center. Lots of trees, view of the hills, silence. I bought it in cash. I hired an architect to help me with the technical details, but the design would be mine. I spent hours drawing, imagining every room, every detail. I wanted a house full of light, big windows, few walls, integration with the garden. An open, airy space where I could breathe. A large office, because I was determined to go back to studying, to updating myself. A library, because I always loved books, but Gregory thought they took up too much space. A spacious kitchen, because I had discovered I liked cooking when I did culinary therapy at the hotel. And a comfortable guest room. For my mother, when she could come to visit me. Construction would take 8 months. Meanwhile, I rented a small but cozy apartment in Brooklyn Heights. I bought new furniture. Nothing too expensive, just enough to feel at home. It was strange at first. The solitude. There was no one asking where I was, what I was doing, when I was coming back. I was free. And freedom, I discovered, can be terrifying. I started therapy. A psychologist named Dr. Laura, specialized in women leaving abusive relationships. Yes, abusive. I took a while to accept that term, but it was the truth. Gregory had subtly controlled me for years, financially, emotionally, and socially. "You are going to need to relearn who you are," said Dr. Laura in the first session, "because you probably spent so much time being who he wanted you to be that you forgot who Emily really is." And she was right. Simple things confused me. What kind of music did I like? What food did I prefer? How did I like to spend my free time? I started experimenting. I went to art exhibitions, alone. I watched movies Gregory hated. I ate in restaurants he found too simple. I bought clothes he would say didn't look good on me. And little by little I was rediscovering myself. I discovered I liked waking up early and walking in the park, that I loved jazz, but I had never listened to it because Gregory only listened to electronic music, that I felt good in jeans and sneakers without needing to be always dressed up. I also decided to tell my mother everything. I traveled to Ohio and spent a weekend with her. She was already better from the stroke, stronger. When I told her about the divorce, about Gregory kicking me out, about Dad's money, she cried. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "Your father always distrusted Gregory. He said he had cold eyes, but you seemed happy, so we didn't want to interfere. I thought I was happy, or I had convinced myself of that." She held my hand. "Your father was very wise. He knew one day you might need that security." We sat in silence for a moment. "He would do that for you too, if he could," I said. "I know. He was a good man." Before returning, I visited my father's grave. I brought flowers and stayed there for a while. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered. You saved me even after you were gone. And I promised to use this the right way, the way you would like. Months passed. The house was taking shape. I visited the site every week, following every stage. It was exciting to see something that had been born in my head becoming real. I started an online refresher course in architecture. It was challenging, but good. My brain was rusty, but little by little I got back into the rhythm. During that time, Gregory disappeared from my life completely. I knew from the news that he was facing several lawsuits, from the construction company, from clients who had discovered the frauds, from the DA. Chloe also disappeared from social media. I hoped she was okay, rebuilding her life far from all that. One afternoon, I received a call from Kate. "Emily, we managed to finalize all the transfers. Both apartments are in your name. The shares were transferred, and the last payment hit the account. Officially, your divorce is complete. Complete." 15 years of marriage summarized in bank transfers and paperwork. But I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief. That night, I made a list of everything that had happened in the last year, from the broken woman on the sidewalk to where I was now, owner of properties, with money in the bank, building my own house, going back to school. It wasn't the life I had planned. It was much better. 6 months after the agreement, I received the call I was waiting for. "Emily, the house is ready," said the architect. "You can move in whenever you want." I went there the same day. I entered through the front door and stood in the foyer, just feeling. It was perfect. Exactly as I had imagined. Light coming in from everywhere. Spacious but cozy spaces. Every detail thought out with love. My house, my space, my new beginning. I moved in little by little, without hurry. Every piece of furniture chosen with care, every object with meaning. No ostentation, nothing to impress anyone. Just what made me happy. The day I hung the last painting on the living room wall, I sat on the sofa and looked around. I was home. Finally. A year after being kicked out of the house, my life was unrecognizable. The house turned out beautiful. With a garden, I took care of myself. I discovered I liked gardening. Something therapeutic about caring for plants, seeing them grow. I finished the architecture refresher course and started doing small freelance jobs. Nothing big. Just remodeling projects for acquaintances. But it was rewarding to use my creativity again, to create spaces that made people happy. Patrick suggested I do something more with my financial situation. "You have resources. Why don't you invest in something that makes a difference?" The idea stayed in my head. Difference how? It was during a therapy session that I had the idea. "How many women are in the situation you were in?" asked Dr. Laura. "Trapped in bad relationships because they don't have financial independence. Without professional qualifications because they gave up everything for marriage. Without a support network because they isolated themselves. Many." The answer was many. What if I could help? I thought aloud. What if I created something for women in that situation? The idea grew. I talked to Patrick, to Kate, to other professionals. And little by little, the project took shape. I created an NGO called New Dawn. The goal was to help women leaving abusive or difficult relationships to rebuild their lives. We offered free legal accompaniment through a partnership with Kate's firm, professional training courses, financial guidance so they could learn to manage money, and psychological support because I knew firsthand how important that was. I rented a small space in Midtown. Nothing fancy, but functional. I hired a small team, a social worker, a psychologist, and an administrative coordinator. The project started small. In the first few weeks, we helped only 3 women, but word of mouth worked. In 2 months, we had a waiting list. The stories were similar to mine. Women who had been convinced to leave careers, to depend completely on their husbands, to erase themselves. Women who were now trying to rebuild from zero. One of them was especially impactful. Carmen, 38 years old, 2 children. Her husband had controlled every penny that entered the house for 15 years. When she tried to separate, he threatened to leave her with nothing. Kate took the case. In 4 months, we got not only a fair division, but also child support and a restraining order against the ex-husband who had shown himself to be violent. Carmen took an administration course we offered, got a job at a small company, and was rebuilding her life. "You saved me," she told me one day. with tears in her eyes. "No," I replied, "you saved yourself. I just gave you the tools." The work at the NGO filled me in a way I never imagined. Every woman we helped was a victory. Every story of overcoming reminded me why it was worth it. I also went back to having a social life. I made friends with other women from the NGO volunteer group. We went out for dinner, laughed, talked about everything and nothing. One of them, Julia, became especially close. She had gone through a difficult divorce years ago and was now a lawyer specializing in family law. "You know you are an inspiration to many women, right?" she told me one night while we drank wine on my terrace. I was surprised. "I didn't do anything extraordinary. Emily, you came out of the bottom of the well and created something beautiful. Not only did you rebuild your life, but you are helping others rebuild theirs. That is incredible. I hadn't thought of it like that. For me, it was just doing what seemed right. But little by little, I realized my story had power. I started giving talks at universities and women's groups, telling my experience. Not to brag, but to show it was possible to start over, no matter how lost the person felt. The talks led to more women seeking the NGO. The project grew. We got sponsorship from some companies and donations from individuals. We expanded to 2 larger rooms and hired more professionals. One day, I received an unexpected message. It was from Chloe. "Hi, Emily. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I wanted to tell you. I am studying at university, psychology. I want to help women who have gone through abusive relationships, like me and you. Thanks for showing it is possible to start over," I replied. "Congratulations on university. I hope you achieve your dream. And if you need an internship in the future, look for me. There is always room for those who want to help." She replied with a heart emoji and thanks. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, but it means not letting the past control your future. 2 years after the divorce, the NGO had already helped more than 200 women. Some got fair divorces, others found jobs, others simply found the strength to leave bad situations. During that time, I avoided relationships. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to risk it again. But I didn't feel alone. I had my mother, who now visited me frequently. I had my friends. I had my work. I had my house. One afternoon, I was at the NGO office reviewing some cases when the receptionist alerted me. "There is a man here who wants to talk to you. He says it is personal." My heart froze. "Gregory? After all this time? Who is it?" He said he is David Harrison, university professor. He says he wants to talk about a project. I breathed relieved. It wasn't Gregory. David entered. A man of about 40-something, gray hair at the temples, reading glasses, kind smile, sociology professor. I discovered he was researching women in situations of economic vulnerability. "I heard about your NGO's work," he said. "It is impressive. I would like to form a partnership, bring my students to do volunteer work here. Learn and practice about the social issues we study in theory." We talked for almost 2 hours. David was passionate about his work. He spoke with enthusiasm about education and social transformation. It was contagious. "I would love that partnership," I said at the end. "When can we start? How about next week? I'll bring a group of students to see the space." "Perfect." He got up to leave, but hesitated at the door. "Emily, can I ask you a personal question?" "You can. Would you accept having a coffee someday? Not related to work, just because I would like to know you better?" I was surprised. I didn't expect that. I don't know if I'm ready for that," I said honestly. He smiled, without pressure. "No problem. The offer remains open. If you change your mind, let me know." After he left, I kept thinking. 2 years had passed. Would I be ready? I called Dr. Laura. "What do you think? Am I ready to try again?" She laughed softly. "Emily, only you can answer that. But I'm going to ask you a question. Are you happy now?" "I am. And accepting going out with someone, would that change that? Would you be less happy?" I thought, not necessarily. Then maybe the question isn't if you are ready, but if you want to. Do you want to know that person better? Did I want to? I thought of David's kind smile, the way he spoke with passion about his work, the respect with which he had made the invitation. "I think so." "Then accept the coffee. It doesn't have to be anything more than a coffee. See how you feel. The following week, when David returned with the students, I told him yes. I accepted the coffee. We agreed for the following Saturday. Coffee with David was surprisingly normal. No pressure, no grandiose expectations. We talked about books, work, life. He told me about his amicable divorce years ago, about his 2 teenage sons he saw every weekend. There were no sparks, no drama, just a pleasant conversation between 2 people who had gone through difficult things and come out the other side. We went out other times, always without hurry, without commitment. Sometimes to the movies, sometimes a simple dinner, sometimes just a walk in Central Park. It took me more than 6 months to introduce him to my mother. I was afraid of her reaction, afraid of making a mistake. But my mother liked him immediately. He has kind eyes, she said after he left. Not like the other one. This one is good. David never tried to rush me, never questioned why I sometimes showed myself distant, why I struggled to trust completely. He was simply there, patient, constant. I'm in no hurry, he said one night. I'm happy just being near you, on your time. That was what won me over. The respect, the patience, the total absence of attempt at control. A year after our first coffee, he moved into my house. It wasn't a dramatic decision. He practically lived there already, with half his clothes in the closet and his toothbrush in the bathroom. It would be more practical if I moved in at once, he suggested one morning, while we drank coffee. It would, I agreed. And so it was, simple. Like the best things in life. The NGO kept growing. We opened a second unit in another region of the city. We got a partnership with the state government to expand services. More than 500 women had already gone through our programs. I also created an emergency fund for women who needed to leave home urgently but had no resources. Temporary help to pay rent, food, while they got organized. Exactly what I didn't have when I needed it. Sometimes when I was in the NGO office, I looked around and couldn't believe I had built that. From nothing, from despair, something was born that was changing lives. One afternoon, 3 years after the divorce, I received an unexpected call. It was a reporter from a national magazine. They wanted to do a feature on the NGO and my story. I hesitated. I didn't like exposure, talking about myself, but Julia convinced me. Think about how many women will read it and realize they are not alone, that they can leave, that help exists. I accepted the interview. The report came out 2 months later. Cover of the magazine, From the Ashes to a New Dawn. How Emily transformed pain into purpose. I found the title too dramatic, but the report was good. It told my story without sensationalism. It talked about the NGO. It included testimonials from women we had helped. What I didn't expect was the repercussion. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from TV shows wanting interviews. From other cities wanting to open NGO units. From women asking for help, and there was a specific call that surprised me. Emily? It's me, Chloe. We hadn't spoken for over a year. Hi, is everything okay? I read the report. It is beautiful, and I wanted to tell you. I graduated in psychology, and I wanted to know if the internship proposal still stands. I smiled. It does. When can you start? Next week? Perfect. Welcome to the team. Chloe became one of the best professionals at the NGO. She understood from her own experience what those women were going through. She managed to connect with them in a unique way. One day, drinking coffee in the office kitchen, she told me, "You know, sometimes I think about the past, and I feel ashamed of what I did, of how I was. You were young. You were manipulated too. I know. But, even so, I helped hurt you. And you not only forgave me, but gave me a chance. People make mistakes, Chloe. What matters is what we do after." She wiped a tear. "Thank you. For everything." That night, at home, David was cooking, while I corrected some remodeling projects I had accepted. Freelance work was still something I did for pleasure, not necessity. "Are you happy?" he asked suddenly. I looked up. "What? Are you happy? With your life?" I thought about the question. I looked around my house. I thought about the NGO, the women we were helping, my friendships, my mother who was healthy and visited me regularly. I looked at David, who looked at me with so much affection. I I replied with certainty. Happier than I ever imagined possible. He smiled. I'm glad to hear that. That night, before sleeping, I took the letter my father had written years ago. It was already yellowed, with marks of having been folded and unfolded many times. I reread his words. Use this money wisely, not for revenge, but to build your own life. I looked around. I had done exactly that. I hadn't used the resources to destroy Gregory, although he had destroyed himself with his crimes. I had used them to rebuild myself, to build something bigger than me, to help others. I hope you are proud, Dad, I whispered. I think I used the gift you gave me well. I put the letter back in the drawer and turned off the light. Tomorrow would be another day. More women to help, more stories to hear, more lives to transform, and I was ready. 5 years after that terrible day, I was kicked out of the house. My life was a testament to the power of starting over. The New Dawn NGO now had 4 units spread across the metropolitan area. We had a team of 23 professionals, lawyers, psychologists, social workers, teachers for training courses. We had already helped more than 1,200 women rebuild their lives. My work as an architect also blossomed unexpectedly. I started specializing in affordable housing projects, working with NGOs and cooperatives to create dignified spaces for low-income people. It was rewarding to use my talent for something that really mattered. I married David in a simple ceremony, just family and close friends. Nothing ostentatious, nothing to impress anyone, just people we loved, celebrating a love that had grown slowly, with respect and true partnership. This time, I maintained my financial independence, not out of mistrust, but out of wisdom. I had separate accounts, my investments in my name, and David not only supported this, but encouraged it. You fought hard for your independence, he said. I will never ask you to give it up. That was when I knew I had chosen correctly. My mother, now with stable health, moved into a small house I bought near mine. I saw her almost every day, and that healed something inside me. Lost time recovered. As for Gregory, I heard through third parties that he had lost practically everything. The investigations revealed a fraud network much larger than we imagined. He was convicted, served time, and today lived in a small town in North Dakota, working in an accounting office. His life of ostentation was over. I didn't feel joy with his fall, just a sense of justice served. He had hurt many people. I was just one of them. Now he was paying the price. One morning, I was at the NGO office when our receptionist alerted me of an unexpected visit. There is a woman here. She says you will want to see her. When I saw who it was, I froze. It was Sarah, the best friend I had in college and lost contact with when I married Gregory. Emily, she said, with tears in her eyes. I saw the report about you, about everything that happened. I am so sorry. I should have stayed in touch. I should have realized. I hugged her. It wasn't your fault. I isolated myself. I am the one who should apologize. We talked for hours. She told me about her life, her happy marriage, her 2 children. I told her about my journey, about falling and getting up, about finding purpose in pain. You were always strong, said Sarah. Even when you didn't realize it. We resumed the friendship as if 15 years hadn't passed. Some true connections withstand time and distance. On the 5th anniversary of the NGO, we held a big event. We invited all the women we had helped over the years. More than 300 attended. Each had a story of overcoming. Women who now had their own businesses, established careers, safe homes, women who had escaped violent relationships and were now independent and happy. During the event, Carmen, the first woman we helped, asked to speak. 5 years ago, I was lost, aimless, without hope. I thought I could never get out of that hole. And then I met Emily and the New Dawn team. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. You didn't just help me legally and financially. You showed me that I had value, that I deserved more. Today, I am an administrative manager at a company. I live in my own house, and my kids are safe and happy. None of this would be possible without you. When she finished, the whole room applauded, standing up. I cried, not of sadness, but of gratification. That night, at home with David, we sat on the terrace with wine and stayed in silence for a while, just looking at the stars. "You saved many lives," he said. "I didn't save anyone. I just gave tools. They saved themselves. Even so, you transformed your pain into something beautiful. Not everyone achieves that." I thought about his words. It was true. I could have become bitter. I could have become cynical. I could have used my resources just to take revenge on Gregory. Instead, I chose to build. I chose to help. I chose to turn the trash into a garden. "Do you know what I learned from all this?" I said aloud. "That it's not what happens to us that defines who we are. It's what we do with what happens." David held my hand. "And you chose to do something incredible." Days later, I was reorganizing my home office when I found that old suitcase, the same one I carried the day I was kicked out. It was stored at the back of a closet, forgotten. I opened it carefully. Inside, the old clothes I wore that day, the envelope with the fraudulent divorce, and my father's faded blue card. I took the card and ran my finger over the worn surface. That small piece of plastic had changed everything. Not for the money it represented, but for the love it carried, for the care of a father who wanted to protect his daughter even after death. I decided to keep the card in a special way. I framed it together with my father's letter and put it on the wall of my office. A daily reminder of where I came from, what I overcame, and the love that brought me here. Looking at the frame, I thought of all the Emilys I had been. The naive girl who married for love, the wife who erased herself little by little, the destroyed woman on the sidewalk, the survivor who got up, the social entrepreneur, the happy and fulfilled woman I was today. All those Emilys were part of me, and all, in some way, were necessary for me to get here. My phone rang. It was Chloe, from the office. "Emily, a woman just arrived. Story very similar to yours. Her husband kicked her out of the house yesterday. She is desperate. Can you come talk to her?" "I'm on my way." I took my keys and left. One more woman needing help. One more story of pain that could be transformed into a new dawn. And I would be there to help. Because I knew, better than anyone, that sometimes all a person needs is an outstretched hand in the darkest moment. And sometimes that outstretched hand comes from someone who was also in the dark and found the light. I drove to the office with a full heart. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Built by me, with my choices, my values, my purpose. When Gregory threw me out on the street believing he was destroying me, he actually set me free. He forced me to discover my own strength. He gave me the opportunity to become who I really was, not who he wanted me to be. And for that, in a strange way, I even thanked him. Because from the bottom of the well, I didn't just climb, I flew. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left your mouth open. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to have access to exclusive videos that I don't post here. I'll be waiting for you.